We're going to step back today and look at the global landscape because something really fundamental has shifted. We're moving and fast into an era where your geography, your citizenship, it no longer guarantees a predictable life.
Right. Or a stable economy. Even basic safety.
Exactly. That framework that supported the free movement of goods and capital for decades,
Yeah.
according to the sources we've got, it's dissolving right now.
It's a seismic shift, really. And for today's deep dive, we're focused on one core concept, global market segregation.
Okay.
Our mission is to take these sources and look at this dramatic split of the world into two new distinct and competing power zones and what that means for your job, your income, and your freedom.
And what we're seeing really it boils down to two camps. The sources are calling them zones of resource power grabs versus zones of technology havens.
Yeah.
The core, and this is a pretty brutal insight from the material, is this. If you personally don't control either physical resources, we're talking oil, minerals, or computational resources, so AI, data, processing power, then your personal income is at direct risk.
How so?
It could just be devalued by cost inflation. You're basically stuck in the middle between these two huge forces.
And this isn't some, future trend we're talking about. This is right now.
Right now.
We've analyzed sources detailing two nearly simultaneous events that just illustrate this split perfectly. A massive rule-breaking military action in South America.
Okay.
And at the same time, this high-level tech diplomacy happening thousands of miles away in the Middle East.
Yeah.
We've got to connect those two dots because they're absolutely linked.
Okay, so let's start with the facts then. The things that are redefining this global power map. What's the big move on the side of physical resource control?
What's really fascinating here is just how quickly it all happened and how unilateral the first event was.
Right.
The first defining event is a major U.S. military operation in Venezuela. The result, according to the analysis we're looking at from the weak U.S., was the arrest of President Maduro.
Sorry, but it's more than that.
Oh, much more. It was paired with a stated intention to seize and control the country's vast oil wealth.
Whoa, hold on. I want to unpack that specific phrase. Stated intention to seize and control. This isn't just about, regime change or stabilization.
Well, you got it all.
This is about physical asset control. What does the source say about the strategy behind that?
It's pure economic necessity, really, but it's dressed up as a geopolitical move. Venezuela has some of the world's biggest oil reserves.
Right.
So for the U.S. economy, securing that resource, well, it's seen by some as critical for domestic energy stability in a world that's fracturing.
About the cost.
The cost is huge. As the source points out, it's a complete disregard for international law. They're securing resources at the expense of their reputation.
And what makes this story so compelling, maybe even more significant in the long run, is what was happening at the exact same time, thousands of miles away.
Exactly. While one power was focused on controlling physical ground, the oil Elon Musk was in a series of high-level meetings with the UAE leadership.
And these meetings weren't about oil.
Not at all. They were centered on forming a strategic partnership, specifically in AI and space development.
So the oil grab versus the AI and space grab.
Precisely. And that diplomacy, which was covered by places like Entrepreneur Middle East, it basically solidifies the Gulf region as a new global hub for future-focused innovation. It's where the computational and, the knowledge resources are all starting to gather.
This juxtaposition, it just clarifies the new market segregation perfectly, doesn't it? Zone 1 is the resource power grab zone. It's focused on physical brute force control. In this case, America going for the oil, but at a huge cost to the global order.
And Zone 2 is the technology haven zone. It's focused entirely on computational control, and it does it by offering stability and neutrality.
So the Gulf, the UAE, they're positioning themselves to control the infrastructure of the future. AI, fintech, space tech.
Right, by offering a neutral, stable place for capital and talent to move to.
The fact that these two things are happening at the same time, brute force for physical resources and high-level diplomacy for the digital future, it makes you ask, is this coordinated? Or is it just two completely different worldviews clashing?
Well, that's the thing. The sources give completely contradictory answers. The way these events are being interpreted could not be more different.
Let's start with that hard geopolitical view. Interpretation A from the analysts in the weak U.S. How do they see this?
They frame the U.S. actions in Venezuela as a a dark and dangerous return to imperial policy. They don't pull any punches. They call it predatory behavior.
And the comparison they're drawing is?
The invasion of Iraq
Yeah.
for asset control. It's an uncomfortable parallel, but it's being made widely.
So what's the consequence of that, according to this view?
The utter destruction of international law. It suggests the U.S. is sending a signal that legitimacy doesn't matter anymore. It's been replaced by brute force.
And if a major power is willing to break all the rules?
It leads to global chaos, resistance. The world just becomes a much riskier place for everybody.
That is a devastating assessment. The end of world order.
Right.
But then you pivot and you look at interpretation B from the analysis in Entrepreneur Middle East.
And it's like they're living on a different planet.
They almost entirely ignore the geopolitical storm in South America.
Completely. They're focused on creating what they call quiet havens for capital and technology.
The divergence there is just staggering, isn't it? How can you hold those two ideas, global chaos and fantastic investment opportunity, in your head at the same time?
Well, the tech haven interpretation is pretty simple. While the old world, the West, fights over physical stuff and destroys norms, the new world is just quietly building the infrastructure of the future.
So the message to engineers and investors is clear.
Crystal clear. The centers of development are shifting. If the West is becoming a conflict zone, then talent and capital will just migrate to neutral zones like the Gulf that offer safety and clear rules.
It's a profound lack of faith in the old system. Capital is literally voting with its feet.
Absolutely. Moving to places that promise not to get involved in the fighting, but instead to profit from the innovation the rest of the world still needs.
Which brings us to the most important question for you, the listener. How do these massive geopolitical chess moves actually affect your rent, your job, your passport? This isn't abstract anymore.
No. We've identified 4 key channels of influence that directly impact your daily life, and it starts immediately with your income and the prices you pay.
The sources make it so clear. Your cost of living is now directly tied to the success or failure of the U.S. operation in Venezuela.
Yes, let's look at the potential upside first. If the U.S. gets stable control over that oil and brings it to market quickly,
then gas prices might drop.
Exactly. You might see a temporary drop in fuel prices in the West, some relief at the pump, but you can't ignore the cost. The massive military spending required to do that will translate into a higher long-term tax burden.
So cheaper gas, but higher taxes.
Pretty much. You pay one way or the other.
And what if it goes wrong? If the operation bogs down in guerrilla warfare?
Then the sources all predict a guaranteed global surge in inflation.
That's the consensus negative view.
It is. Fuel costs would skyrocket due to production collapse, sabotage, or just the political risk premium that gets slapped on all commodities trading. And that inflation hits everyone, everywhere. It's a direct tax on instability.
And that leads right into the second channel.
Yeah.
Your work, your job. This split is creating a huge polarization in job demand.
Massive. You're seeing demand spike in 2 very distinct, almost opposite areas.
Okay, so on one side.
On one side, in the resource power grab zone, the West, you'll see a surge in demand for specialists in the military-industrial complex and in raw materials.
People who can secure and protect physical assets and supply lines.
Exactly. Infrastructure protection engineers,
Yeah.
Logistics experts who can navigate sanctions, that sort of thing.
And on the other side.
A completely different professional. Engineers in AI, robotics, fintech. And this is crucial only in those neutral jurisdictions like the UAE or Singapore. The expertise is only valuable if it operates in a politically clean environment.
So your skills need to be portable.
Yeah.
If you're an AI engineer in Silicon Valley, you might actually be more valuable if you can move to Dubai.
Right. Because that's where the new infrastructure is being built, free from all this geopolitical baggage.
And for anyone working at a big international company right now, there's a serious and immediate risk. We're talking about sudden job cuts.
Absolutely. And not because of market cycles, but because of geopolitics.
Explain that.
Imagine you're an accountant for a multinational that suddenly have 30% of its market sanctioned overnight. That job is now redundant. Not because of your skills, but because of a border dispute thousands of miles away.
Wow. So working for those big global firms just got a lot riskier.
Significantly. The threat of sanctions, countermeasures, asset seizures, it's all heightened now between these new blocks.
The third channel is personal security and freedom. And this is where it gets genuinely unsettling. The sources point to lower personal safety for Western citizens traveling or living abroad.
It's simple retaliation. The aggressive U.S. actions increase the risk profile for everyone. We're talking about a higher risk of detention, seizure of assets, even kidnapping in unstable areas.
Because when you break the rule,
The rules no longer protect your citizens abroad. Simple as that.
on top of that, there's the threat of severe digital fragmentation. This is one of those abstract things that could hit daily life really hard.
It means the global internet and financial systems are at risk of just splintering along these geopolitical fault lines.
So the platforms you use every day, Google, Facebook, financial services, they could become locked by jurisdiction.
Potentially, yeah. You might need new kinds of VPNs or proxy structures just to do basic business across borders.
Yeah.
The free, open internet we all knew is being partitioned.
And finally, relocation. If you've ever thought about moving your business or your family somewhere safer,
That window is closing. Fast.
you can only really move to countries that say genuinely neutral.
And there aren't many of those. The fence is getting smaller, and those few neutral places are becoming exponentially more expensive and restrictive. You are, in effect, becoming a hostage to your nation's geopolitical affiliation.
That raises the huge question. What happens next? We've got 3 potential scenarios from the source material, and we've assigned probabilities to them.
Right. Scenario 1, the base case, is what the sources call Techno-Feudalism and resource dictate. They're giving this a 50% probability, so the most likely path.
Techno-Feudalism. That is a very strong term. What does that actually look like day to day?
It assumes the U.S. successfully maintains control over Venezuelan oil by force. That creates short-term energy stability for the West.
Okay.
But this action leads to international isolation because the rest of the world refuses to recognize the legitimacy of it. Meanwhile, capital and tech elites like Musk, they migrate en masse to neutral hubs like the UAE and Singapore.
Creating these walled gardens, the techno-feudal state.
Totally.
So the impact on you as an individual is a stable but very high cost of living in Europe and the U.S. Gas might be cheaper, but military spending is high, and all the tech innovation has moved elsewhere.
And travel gets complicated. Visa wars. And your digital services get split. Western platforms lose their global reach.
And the rationale for this being 50% likely.
It's compelling. The U.S. has already shown it's willing to break rules for resources, and big business is already voting with its feet seeking non-USCU partners.
Okay, let's move to the negative case. Scenario 2, global intifada. That holds a worrying 30% likelihood.
This is the high-risk, destabilizing scenario. Here, the Venezuela operation gets bogged down in a long, ugly guerrilla war.
And we have historical analogies for this.
We do. Iraq, Libya. They show that a quick military seizure rarely leads to stable production. In this scenario, oil production just collapses due to sabotage.
And the Middle East gets nervous.
Very nervous. Fearing similar actions, they cut cooperation with the West, causing a severe, sudden energy crisis everywhere.
The impact is catastrophic. We're talking hyperinflation, fuel shortages,
Rationing, price controls, potentially social unrest in large cities because of the economic pain. This is where geopolitics hits the grocery store hard.
and finally, scenario 3. The mitigating case, pragmatic collusion. A 20% chance.
This is the compromise scenario. It averts the worst outcomes.
What happens here?
The U.S. finds that direct occupation is just too costly and untenable, so they hand over formal governance to a loyal, local regime that keeps things stable enough.
And the tech giants.
Needing global markets, they act as informal mediators between the blocs. The conflict doesn't go away, but it shifts to the economic and regulatory spheres.
So daily life returns to a kind of new Cold War normal.
Pretty much. Stable 2–3% inflation, but businesses have to operate globally through these complex proxy structures in neutral states. It's an uneasy truce driven by mutual economic need.
The core takeaway that just ties all of this source material together is this. The strategy of the resource power grab block is a massive bet. A bet that physical control over resources is more important than reputation or international norms. They're banking on necessity trumping legality.
That is the crux of it. The sources confirm the era of the global free market is over. We are officially in a time of rigid, zero-sum competition between blocs.
Their ownership of oil, land, even intellectual property
Is guaranteed solely by either brute force on one side or complete neutrality on the other.
So as a listener, you need real-world data points to track this. What tangible indicators should we be watching right now to see which scenario is winning?
First, watch the price of oil. Specifically West Texas Intermediate. A sharp drop, say, below $65 a barrel, would signal success for the resource dictate. That points to scenario 1.
And a surge.
A rapid surge, a sustained price over $100 a barrel. That's a strong signal of instability. That means we're heading toward the breakdown of scenario 2.
Second indicator.
Big tech's actions. If major AI or cloud computing giants announce massive new headquarters in Dubai or Singapore, that's confirmation that the tech elite are migrating. It solidifies scenario 1. They're building the future somewhere else.
And third.
Watch for sabotage reports. News of explosions, widespread disruption on oil pipelines in Venezuela. That's a direct signal the seizure is failing. That pushes us quickly toward the hyperinflation of scenario 2.
Okay, here is the final provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive. The ultimate risk here is that you become a geopolitical hostage of your nation's affiliation. You have to ask yourself, are you optimizing your life for cheap resources at the price of international isolation, or are you preparing to move toward technology and prosperity, but at the price of emigration?
That's the new global dividing line.